Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a perfumers portfolio video. And I'm not going to do the real popular ones yet. As you've noticed, I've done Anique Minardo and I've done Nathalie Lorson. Now, we're going to do Gerard Anthony today, who is an old-time perfumer. He made fragrances mostly in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but he did do some in the 2000s as well. One of my bottles I'm going to show you is actually from the year 2000. Before I get into that, though, I just want to touch on a topic, and I'm just going to kind of talk off the top of my head here. So I'm a little less prepared today than I normally would. It's going to freeze here in Texas again. Tonight it's going to get below freezing. Last year, if you remember, we had that power outage where the grid went out and we had these rolling blackouts. So everyone freaked out and went to the store, and it's a madhouse. So I just got back and my head's all still spinning from being around a million people, seeing them fight over a packet of ham. But I joke, sort of. But I just want to say that I'm really grateful to everyone who's kind of reached out and supported me in this. I'm doing this because I love perfume. I love talking about perfume. And I'm starting to really love kind of sharing the knowledge that I've picked up along the way. It's somewhat therapeutic for me, but also I get a lot of joy in, when someone writes me and says, hey, I learned so much. I bought this off of your recommendation. It's great, or whatever it is. I'm not doing this to become YouTube famous. I'm not doing this for free bottles. In fact, brands, don't send me any bottles. I don't need your bottles. I have my own bottles that I paid for with my own money. And also, perfume to me is kind of like this safe space. It's this beautiful thing that, you spray on and you enjoy and you love. And, it's an art. It's a beautiful art that you can just kind of get lost in, while everything's going crazy with politics and COVID and, inflation and all the real life problems that we have. Perfume is this beautiful escape for so many people, and it has been for me. So before we get into Gerard Anthony's fragrances, which there are many, let's do scent of the day, since this has kind of been my blueprint, if you will. Today, my scent of the day is an Estee Lauder fragrance that was marketed in 1988 to women, called Knowing. Now, this is a beautiful chiffre, and it was created by Ellie Roger, who I'm not as familiar with his work. One of my subscribers told me that Fragrantica, who has Knowing credited to Jean Carleo, the famous perfumer for Jean Patou, is incorrect. Let me give you a fresh spray here, just because this is a chiffre. I love my chiffres. It's probably one of my favorite categories. Come here, top. And if you notice, this was a splash that I showed you. And so what I do is I decant them into these little 10 ml atomizers, and I wear it as much as I want. And then once it's gone, I decant some more. And if you get a better price on a splash, don't pass up a splash bottle. This is a very complex chiffre. In fact, this smells like something that Roja Dove would charge $1,000 for. He loves his chiffres. This is that complex. It has a beautiful plum note, maybe the most beautiful plum note outside of Rochas Femme, and that's saying something. I love the plum in this, and I love the tuberose in this. The tuberose in Knowing and the tuberose in Poison Esprit de Parfum are two of my favorite tuberose notes I've ever come across. It's so decadent, and it just oozes this, it's a very floral chiffre, I will say that. There's mimosa, there's rose, there's a note of pittosporum, which I'm not too familiar with how that smells, but there's big jasmine, big orange blossom. Patchouli holds everything together. This is a 6-hour dry down. Oh, and what's great about this fragrance is it doesn't fall apart. After the hours go by, 6, 7, 8 hours, it holds its composition beautifully. And it's earthy because of the vetiver with oak moss. This came out, like I said, 1988. And I am shocked that, they were still marketing stuff like this to women in the late 80s. I know that I mentioned Azzaro from Estee Lauder, which is my favorite Estee Lauder fragrance, I must say. I like it more than Knowing, even though I know Knowing is a fantastic composition. Azzaro just has my heart as far as Estee Lauder fragrances go. You know, that was the 70s, okay? And in the 70s, things were a little bit different. So when you say, okay, I can't believe women smelled like that in the 70s, or I can't believe fragrances were marketed that way, successful fragrances were marketed to women that way in the 70s. But the late 80s, to have big oak moss and amber and patchouli and vetiver in the dry down, oh, it doesn't feel, you know, it feels like a power fragrance. If you're a powerful woman, you're in a position of authority, you know, you go to board meetings, you run companies, you're an exec, this is what I would recommend you wear. It is really special. I got a sample of Roja's Chiffre Extraordinaire. This annihilates Chiffre Extraordinaire. And again, that's what you're going to get from my channel, my honest opinion. Just because that cost $2,000 does not make it a better fragrance. I paid 70 bucks for this 50 ml splash, and this is substantially better quality than Chiffre Extraordinaire. So anyways, don't sleep on these old fragrances. Even the old women fragrances. I mentioned Tetra alla Scala blowing me away. And so there's a lot of sleepers, and the women fragrances haven't been picked over. Like, there's some vintage masculines in here where the prices have gone through the roof on the masculines, but the women's side, we haven't seen that so much yet, although I do think that's coming. So if this sounds good to you, Knowing is one to put on the list. Okay, let's go to Gerard Anthony's work. Let's start in order. Let's just go in order of creation. So let's start with the hit that he has first and foremost. His most famous perfume from the year 1978. This is a collaboration. Now, to be fair, Luca Turin said that there's about 20 perfumers who claim credit for this fragrance, but it is Gerard Anthony with Martine Heidenreich and Richard Wirtz. This is Azzaro Pour Homme, the classic barbershop fougere. Oh my God. This is a vintage because it has the sticker on it. If you can find, there are different versions, obviously. This is not like a first edition or anything, but if you get one with the sticker, you're good. You know, that's all you gotta look for. Just get a sticker, and the one today with the A that's like embossed into the bottle and the Azzaro written on top is not as good. So if you can find a bottle like this, now this is a 50 ml splash, okay? This, Paco Rabanne Pour Homme and this in the 1970s are the two, like, mountaintop fougères to me. This is probably the best anise or aniseed heavy fragrance, in my opinion. I love the anise note in this. It just is so perfectly done. And it's a complex fragrance. It's very masculine, in my opinion. This is James Bond juice. I mean, you can't get much more bang for your buck than this. This is very high value for money, especially if you've never smelled this. If you're a younger guy and, you wear Bleu de Chanel and you wear stuff like that, maybe even you bought a Ventus or a Ventus cologne or something, try something like this. Get your nose on something like this. It's so masculine. It reminds me of my father's generation. It will remind you a little bit of that generation because that's what was popular back then. But men smelled like men back then. They didn't smell like bubblegum and pralines, and I love that about this juice. This is made for men. There is nothing apologetic about it, but it's also so refined. You could wear this with a tux. You could wear this sitting around at home with a white t-shirt like I am today. I got my T-Rex t-shirt on. You could wear it with something like this. You could wear this just about anywhere and fit at home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 months a year. I usually prefer to wear my aromatic fougères in the warmer weather, believe it or not. Some people like to wear them in cooler weather, but I like to wear them in warmer weather. I think I get the most out of them. But this is one that I absolutely love and cherish. You know, there's some more modern fougères that you could try and buy. I would consider Creed's Viking, the original Viking, not Viking Cologne, which sucks, but Creed's original Viking, I would consider a modern fougère. There's Linsalmis. There's a bunch of other, you know, takes on a fougère that you could maybe hunt down. But if you want to start towards the beginning, this and Paco Rabanne pour Homme are the two scents from the 70s that, as an explorer, if you're going to become an explorer of fragrance, if you're going to become a student of fragrance history, you have to smell this and know this and understand this. It is an icon. It is one of those benchmarks that, you know, most people, if they had to pick one fragrance from 1978, as much as I love Derek and as much as I love Lagerfeld Cologne, they would say this is the masculine from the year 1978. But this is a fragrance about Gerard Anthony, not the year. So Gerard Anthony comes in with an absolute splash. And this is a memorable, hard to forget, you know, it just leaves that impression on your mind. If you want to show everyone what good taste you have, you walk into a room wearing this, you cannot go wrong. Trust me, with vintage Azzaro pour Homme. Okay, now we're going to go on to a controversial one. I'm going to include this because I trust Parfumo a little bit more than Fragrantica, and there's been some rumors lately that maybe all of the Guerlains were not simply created by Jean-Paul Guerlain on his own, that he had a lot of help. And so since this fragrance is credited to Jean-Paul Guerlain and Gerard Anthony now, I'm including this, but just understand that I'm doing this with a big asterisk next to it. I absolutely could be wrong, and maybe Parfumo was wrong and he has nothing to do with it. But I wanted to put this in there. This is from 1989, Guerlain Samsara, EDP. This is a vintage. You can tell by the 5-digit batch code, amongst other things. There's the 5-digit batch code right there at the top. And the presentation of this is awesome. It sprays when it's twisted forward, and then to close it, to make sure it won't spray, you twist it back. They discontinued these bottles. They put Samsara, I believe, in the classic Guerlain bottle with the heart as the cap on it now. But this is basically an overdosed sandalwood fragrance. The newer formulations are a letdown. The reason that I ended up buying this is not my type of scent, by the way. This is not something that I would wear normally. I wouldn't go out there and say, I want to wear Samsara today. Most of the time. Most of the times, I'd actually rather wear something like this, to be honest with you, or knowing a Schifra. But the reason that I bought this, in a nutshell, is because it's supposed to be overdosed at 30% of sandalwood, and they apparently used real Mysore sandalwood in this. Now, Mysore sandalwood is heavily regulated by the Indian government. It's almost impossible to use now, almost impossible. I mean, it's almost illegal, I think, to use in without some sort of special license from the government. And so they started using other things, Australian sandalwood, which is good. You know, there's nothing wrong with any of that. But to have real Mysore sandalwood in a world where, you know, you have brands like Roja charging $1,000 for a fragrance, there's not a drop of anything like as special as real Mysore sandalwood in, I figured I had to get this bottle. And I know there's other vintage hunters like Rich Mitch thought the exact same thing when I talked to him about why he got this. And so, you know, that's kind of the thought process that you have to have sometimes. Sometimes the issue with this one with me is that the yellow florals, the ylang, and the jasmine just hit me, and the narcissus just hit me right here, you know? It's like, bam, headache central. But it only happens about 50% of the time. Half the time I'm safe, half the time it's run for cover. But I really appreciate the composition. If Gerard Anthony actually did work with Jean-Paul Guerlain in creating this, that is huge. I mean, that's huge news. There is a rumor out there that somebody else made Darby, not Jean-Paul Guerlain. You know, there's rumors with Guerlain even now that Delphine Jelk is making a lot of the fragrances that Terry Vasser is credited for. Again, this is geek perfume talk, but long story short is Samsara is a very, if you want a fragrance that puts you in a meditative state, you know, sandalwood does this to me. It puts me in this very calm, meditative aura, if you will, you know, very, very relaxed, very, you know, you've said your prayers, you're comfortable with who you are, you're accepting of, you know, your place in the world, and you go out there and you meet it. And that's the frame of mind that Samsara puts me in. So guys, if you have never tried Samsara, don't be put off by the fact that it's a woman's perfume. It absolutely is floral. It has this oriental undertone because of the vanilla. It's a Guerlain. I mean, no one does vanilla like Guerlain, right? And they did the vanilla with tonka underneath it all here with the most beautiful sandalwood you can imagine. So don't be scared of Samsara. If you want one of the most amazing sandalwood fragrances you can get your nose on, I mean, this is it. And if you can find an older batch code with the 5 digits, do that. The newer stuff with the synthetic sandalwood is still good, but it's not 5-digit batch code good. Okay. Now we're going to move on to my favorite fragrance from Gerard Anthony of all time. I probably should have saved this till the end, but I'm doing them in order, so here it is. And you know what it is. If you know, you know. This is Balenciaga Pour Homme. Again, anytime I have a backup bottle, you know I love something. I don't have 18 backup bottles like Mitch. Well, not yet anyways. This is... I would also consider this a fougere in its own way. Oh God, it's so good. It's you know, the best way that I've ever heard this described is Thomas from Early Greek, and I wish you would make more videos, Thomas, because you know you're like the godfather of Fragcom, but he just he hit it to a T. He said, think about maybe like a rock that you find out in the wild, and it has this, if you've ever seen obsidian, it has this feeling that light can't come in and can't come out. It's dense, you know, it's thick. With a fougere, to create something like that, which I do think this is a fougere, Fragrantica says amber woody. You know, I don't know. It just feels like a fougere to me. I have nothing to base that on. The notes don't make it seem like a fougere, but it just feels like a fougere. And what he's done is he's used one of the most amazing cinnamon notes. This says, by the way, this bottle that I got is a tester, this 100 ml. And if you look at the back, the cinnamon note, you can see it right there at the top. It says cinnamon de Ceylon. And Yura was telling me that that is Ceylon cinnamon is basically what that is. Cinnamon from Ceylon. And that particular cinnamon, the bark is supposed to be a little bit different. The heft of it, you know, which is supposed to change the way that it smells. So it is a particular cinnamon. And it's interesting because this does feel like a cinnamon that is very unique to me. I don't know if there's other fragrances that use that specific cinnamon, or if it was a 1990s thing and then it got hard to find, because this fragrance did come out in 1990, by the way. And Gerard Anthony is credited as the sole perfumer of this. And God bless him for this, by the way. Oh my God. I wore this for my daughter's second birthday, and I just have the most beautiful scent memory attached to this. Every time I smell it, I'm instantly taken back to that day. It is so good. It's this amazing cinnamon with cardamom. There's a bay leaf note in this, with the most, just like it's the most amazing cinnamon, it's also the most amazing patchouli, and they just kind of blend in a way that you just wouldn't believe. And then underneath it all is this manly sandalwood cedar cypress, and one of my favorite notes in perfumery, honey. And I did a top honey. This is not a top 10 video recently. And then there's this resinous, sticky labdanum underneath it all with a huge dollop of oak moss on top, and 90s white musk. Unbelievable. I totally get why people go bonkers collecting this stuff, because it just feels like something that was created in a time like they caught lightning in a bottle. You know, and it does feel a little bit like that cap looks. You see how you just cannot get any light through that cap at all? How it's just thick and oily looking, and it is not transparent. There's no light getting through that stone, so to speak. But imagine if this was black. That's the feeling that that's the feeling that this fragrance gives me. Not black as in a dark fragrance, because this is a very light and optimistic perfume to me. This is a very, it doesn't weigh you down, if you will. This isn't a fragrance that makes you feel moody, like L'Air Bleu or something like that. No, this is a fragrance that makes you feel like you're wearing something amazing. And it's so sad this didn't do well. Also, there's rumors out there, and I don't know if they're true. I don't even know if I would agree with it. My nose doesn't agree with it, let's put it that way. But there are rumors out there that say that this is the first fragrance that ever used oud in it in a commercial fashion. So this was 1990. So this is way back in the day, before, well over a decade before Tom Ford ever did M7, which was supposedly the first one that used oud. So I don't know if I get an oud note or an oud accord. I understand why people are saying that. Oh God, because it just seems, it smells so good. It seems like there is something out of its time, you know? Like, how could they create a composition so amazing with these notes? You know, I think that's why that rumor got started, that there had to be oud in this, because it smells more than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. The patchouli is out of this world in that one. So check that one out. That's a signature scent, year-rounder for me as well. And then we're going to jump 2 years forward. This is a fragrance I don't think I've shown you guys before. I don't think I have. I may be wrong. But this is a fragrance from the house of Salvador Dali, which I have 2 fragrances from this house. Dali Pour Homme and this one from 1992. This is called Salvador by Salvador Dali. Now you can see right here the name. So anytime a fragrance is given the name of its founder, you know, oh, this is so good as well. You know, if you're naming it Salvador after your founder, Salvador Dali, that is a big honor, a big homage, and something to live up to. And I really feel like this fragrance deserves more talk. Everyone knows Balenciaga Pour Homme. Well, most of the big-time vintage hunters know Azzaro and Balenciaga Pour Homme. But if you don't know this fragrance, this is one to put on the list. First of all, look at the beautiful bottle. Forget presentations. I don't really care about it, but just look at the beautiful bottle. It actually says, I don't know if you'll be able to see that because it's a weird kind of deal, but right here, next to the numbers, it says 1994. Right here, embossed underneath. It says copyright, no, I'm sorry, it says copyright 1991. It says the fragrance came out in 92 on Fragrantica, so we'll say 91, 92. And then there's a batch code and stuff, which doesn't matter. But basically, you've heard me say before that there are certain fragrances that came out around the time period of the late 80s to early 90s that give me the exact same feel, okay? They don't smell the same, but they feel the same in composition, right? This is right there in that feeling to me of Guerlain Heritage, of YSL Jazz, of Escada Pour Homme, and Salvador by Salvador Dali. By the way, this is an EDT, and this is a 50 ml. I think they also made 100 ml bottles. This is long discontinued. His art in the middle of the bottle, beautiful presentation. You really have to give it to them for a celebrity fragrance. You know, this and these Salvador Dali and Alain Delon, I can't think of better celebrity fragrances between Iquitos, Alain Delon Classic or the original from 1980, and then Salvador Dali Pour Homme and Salvador by Salvador Dali. Great fragrances, but this basically has this, you know, sunshine, happiness feel to it for me. I've said it before, I need to find a different way to say it, but I feel so at home wearing these fragrances. I feel so comfortable, like I'm just moving through the world, you know, embossed and bubbled in a bubble that is made just for me, if that makes sense. Heritage does this to me, YSL Jazz does this to me, and Escada Pour Homme does this to me, and Salvador by Salvador Dali does it to me. I don't know what it is. It's a mixture of certain notes, and this is also a pretty complex fragrance. It's tarragon, artemisia, coriander. I love coriander in a fragrance. Aldehydes, caraway, green notes, pepper, bergamot in the top. Mid is rose, and a beautiful rose. Cinnamon, jasmine, and carnation. And the base is leather, oak moss, cedar, patchouli, vanilla, musk, tonka, and amber. So if you like late 80s, early 90s fragrances, some of the stuff that I mentioned, definitely put this on the list. And the price hasn't been jacked up yet because I don't think people really realize how good this is. This is made by the same guy that 2 years earlier made one of the greatest masculines of all time. And here he's right on top of his game. I'm not comparing these two, but I'm just saying 2 years apart, same perfumer. This one's hyped to high heaven. Not many people talk about this. So again, I'm not someone that's going to hype this. I don't get a commission if you buy this. I don't care. But I care because I want to share my opinions and what I've learned with you. And this is one that deserves to be smelled. I think I got this 50 ml bottle for like $32 or something on eBay, 35 bucks or something. It was sans box. There was no box. So I offered the guy less and he took it. And sometimes that'll happen. And, you know, I'm also a pretty patient buyer. If he would have said no, I would have walked away. I would have said, thank you. I wouldn't have just said, okay, I'll buy it. Unless I really, really want something. But normally I'm pretty patient because there's other buyers and other opportunities. And so, you know, I always want to get the best bang for my buck and make the money last. So if you like fragrances like Jazz, Safari is another one. If you like fragrances like Ralph Lauren's Safari for Men, or another fragrance which I haven't smelled but is recommended to me, Spirit by Boss, Hugo Boss Spirit. They say Boss Spirit and this is supposed to be very close. I've never smelled Hugo Boss Spirit, but I hear good things about it. I want to. Oh, that's so good. I can't wait to wear that again. Okay, we're going to move on to the last two fragrances. And this one, actually, I want to give this one a smell. I haven't smelled this for a long time. This is 1996. This is Homme de Gres by Gres. And this is a Chiffre for Men from 1996. There's the bottle. Homme de Gres. This is a beautiful summer, spring, basically warm weather perfume. Let's give this bad boy a smell, shall we? Anoush. Thank you, my friend. This is from Enchanté. This is not a complex perfume either, but if you like citrus notes, this is one of the best green citrus fragrances for warm weather for a man you can wear. It's got lemon, it's got basil, bergamot, petitgrain, neroli, jasmine. There is this random peach note listed on Fragrantica that, don't think about Mitsuko peach. It's not peach like that. There's just kind of this underlying fruitiness, if you will, with oak moss. This is 1996. So remember, this was put out when CK1 and all that stuff was popular. All that Aqua de Jo. That's what my face does every time I say Aqua de Jo. But then what's interesting about this fragrance is underneath it all, okay, so you have the citruses and you have the floral touch, the neroli. The neroli in this is beautiful, and neroli is an expensive note, by the way. Neroli is not cheap. Orange blossom is not a cheap ingredient. Underneath it all comes this benzoin and labdanum, but it stays fresh. It just gives it a little bit of boost, you know? So it's not as light and airy as like Chanel Pour Monsieur EDT or something like that. This lasts more than just, you know, that fragrance lasts like 30 minutes to an hour on me. This one, you will get a good 5-6 hours with. 4 to 6 hours, say. Yeah, there's a beautiful amber note underneath created by this labdanum. And what's interesting about this fragrance is it's compared to a lot of fragrances that I've never smelled. So I've never smelled Jacques Fath Ellipse. I've never smelled Quid Pro Quo by Gray, same house. I've never smelled Lord by Molinet. I've never smelled the original Guess Men. I've never smelled Loewe Pour Homme. Rich Mitch loves that one. The only one that I've smelled that I could compare it to is Pour Monsieur by Chanel, but I actually like this better, much better, substantially better than the EDT. The EDP is good for Chanel Pour Monsieur, but for me, if you're talking EDT versus Homme de Gres, I'll take this all day. And this is discontinued, so if you can get this for a good deal, and I do think Enchanté Perfumes has this, you should make it happen before prices go even more astronomical. Okay, now we're going to go to his most modern composition. This is also from the house of Balenciaga, but this is from the year 2000, and this is called Cristobal Pour Homme. Cristobal Pour Homme by Balenciaga. This is a 100 ml bottle, and actually really nice presentation. Here's the cap. And you've got the Balenciaga bees on top of the cap. This is definitely the most modern of all of his fragrances, and the last one that I own. If there's others from that he has made that I'm missing out on, you know, do let me know. Some of his other fragrances that are popular, by the way, are fragrances like D, Dunhill D for Men from 1996. Oh, you know what? I forgot Iquitos. I completely forgot Iquitos. I feel terrible. I've shown that fragrance off many a time, so I'm not going to stop the video to go get it. But he also made Iquitos from 1987, it was. That's one of the best masculine florals. I have 2 bottles of that from Alain Delon. I even said Iquitos earlier in the video, and it didn't even hit me. Why didn't you guys stop me? But he also made fragrances like XS by Paco Rabanne, which is so good. Creed basically created Himalaya by a Creed made Himalaya that smells very similar to XS. They basically copied that fragrance, which they are known to do. He did St. DuPont Pour Homme, which I've never smelled. That's from 1998. He did a bunch of other fragrances like that. So he has other fragrances more than the ones I've shown you. I can't believe I forgot Iquitos. I feel like I should. I'm not going to redo this video, though. You guys have seen my Iquitos. Go back through my previous videos. You'll find Iquitos in the green bottle. It looks like a snake's head. One of his best, and I forgot it. But that's okay. Let's stick on Cristobal. So Cristobal is this ambery benzoin. There's a beautiful relaxing tea note in this, but it's really all about the benzoin with coffee. This is probably the most modern / synthetic feeling. There is a lavender note that runs straight up and down the middle of this, but it's very warm and cozy for you know, cooler days, I would say. This is compared to, and the reason that I never bought Givenchy's Pie is that these two are very similar to each other, so I avoided it. Plus, it's also compared to Very Valentino for Men, which I own, which also has that lavender tobacco, but that's a little bit more fresh. Very Valentino for Men is more fresh. This is more resinous, but it's a modern resinous feel, if you will. It has that Le Male vanilla thing going on, even though it doesn't smell anything like Le Male. It just has that, you know, it has that 21st century, you know, modern feel to it. All of the other fragrances that he's made feel old school to me. He's like an old school specialist, especially Iquitos, which Iquitos had this amazing jasmine note, which, you know, this pissy civet and floral, which was starting to get a little popular. Paco Rabanne's Tenere is very similar. Those two are just some of the most amazing masculine florals. You know, so he has always created these old school compositions, and I think this was his attempt to kind of get brought into the 21st century. So Balenciaga, Cristobal, prices are getting a little bit high. As you can see, the amazing cut on the bottle. Prices are getting a little bit high because of the fact that this is a discontinued gem now, and you know, more and more people are starting to go for it. I would say of all of these, this is probably the one to put, you know, unless you're a fan of more modern compositions, this is the one to maybe wait on, or don't pay crazy prices. Wait till you get a good deal, or get a decant and sample it. I like this fragrance, don't get me wrong. I just don't love it like I love Balenciaga Pour Homme and Salvador and Azzaro and Iquitos, which I forgot. So, thanks for watching this tribute to Gerard Anthony. Please forgive me, Gerard, for forgetting one of your best fragrances. And I will be back again tomorrow with another fragrance video. If you guys have experience with some of these, please do let me know. I love interacting with you guys. Again, this is my passion. This is something that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy sharing this with you. And when you guys share back, it makes it even all the better. So, cheers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.